Live, and I'm Doug Wilkerson, and I just want to welcome you, and we're glad you're here with us. We got several different folks. We got some new folks, we got some old folks, and we got some of our regulars here. So, and there may be others showing up. So, hey, we're going to have a great time. We're dealing with step number 2 tonight, and we're talking about persistent seeking. Also, I've linked in the title and some things I'm going to be sharing towards the end of the meeting, and it's going to be persistent seeking, or 8 practical ways to cope with failure, and that ties together with persistent seeking. So anyway, we're glad you're here, and we're going to I see Zach's here. We're going to again, if you're not speaking, you need to be muted. So, all right, I'm looking for Zach here. There you are. There you are. Yes, there you are. Okay, let's do our breathing exercise, and we're going to breathe in twice, and I'll tell you when, but you breathe in through your nose if you can, twice, and then you exhale once through your mouth, and just let the air go. Don't force it out. Just let it go. So let's inhale again and exhale. Yeah, just let it all out. Then inhale, and then exhale. Okay, one more time. Inhale, and exhale. Now, we're going to breathe one more time, or maybe even 2 more times, because I need it. I want you to think of something that you're grateful for, something that you have compassion towards, or that's something or someone you've loved, or something that loves you. Just something that you're grateful for. Not that you should be, but that you are. Just get a picture of that and let that be in your heart, and breathe in once, again, and then exhale. One more time with that gratefulness. Inhale again, and then exhale. That was good. I like that. I'm glad I did it all those times, because the last time I really felt the last time. That's good. So hopefully that was good for you. So thanks again. And Zach, you are our MC, right, Zach?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to turn it over to you, Zach, and I'm going to reset the video, and we can go from there.
All right. Well, welcome to Saturday Night Live. It's good to see everybody. And we have Doug number 2 on here. It's been a while. That's my brother from another mother. How you doing? And we have Mr. Schultz Thomas on here, and we got Jessica on here. How you been doing? And John. Make sure I didn't miss anybody here.
Bobby.
And Bobby. And good to see you, Bobby. So welcome to Saturday Night Live, and to all you out there on internet land, we want to welcome you as well. And yeah, like Doug said, if you're not talking, if you'd help us out and mute, we'd appreciate it. And if you get muted because you forget, it's not personal, or we're just trying to help you. So because I know it's sometimes I forget. So anyway, without further ado, we are going to move right along. So please welcome Kate. She's going to read the 12 steps for us. So Kate, we're going to send it to you.
All right, 12 steps Step 1, we admitted that we were powerless over our problems and that our lives had become unmanageable. Step 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step 3, we made a decision to turn our wills and our lives over to the care of God. Step 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Step 5, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Step 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character. Step 7, we humbly asked God to remove our shortcomings. Step 8, we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Step 9, we made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Step 10, we continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Step 11, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry it out. And step 12, having had a spiritual awakening, as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
All right, thank you, Kate. And we are going to go back to Kate because she is doing the step for us tonight, and we are doing step 2 because it's February. And I do not remember what topic she is doing that on, but she'll tell us. So please welcome Kate back.
Yay, Kate again.
All right. So step 2. Is we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. I am doing over the subject persistent seeking, which is Job or Job, however you want to say it, 14, 1 through 6. Which, sorry, bear with me for a minute. It's been a long day. You know what? That's okay. So step 2, once again, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Some of the questions that we worked through in step 2. So how has life seemed unfair to me in the areas of family, trauma, abuse, or addiction, however it may fit you? So for me personally, I had a lot of childhood trauma and abuse that led me either, I wouldn't say like farther away from God, but could have led me to make decisions that weren't the best, if that makes sense. So what are my objections to trusting God fully with my addiction and my life? So basically, I like to be in control, if that makes sense. And one of the things that bring us farther away from God, and what step 2 talks about basically, is like making decisions and taking your life in your own hands. And then for whatever reason, whether you like to be in control or whether you think it's the best decision or you know better, you don't trust God. And so the childhood trauma and the childhood abuse that I went through kind of made me like, not like a control freak, but I feel unsafe when I can't control things in my life, which leads me to make decisions that I don't really have any business making, or things that I shouldn't be doing. And I do them anyway, because I think I know what's better for me than God does. Like, he knows that we're cool. So I know like that's one area that I struggle with a lot, is making my own decisions. And then it's almost like making decisions and then asking for forgiveness later, rather than like asking beforehand before I make those decisions. with either other people in my life or decisions about like relationships or like personal decisions and actions that I've done. What emotions and questions do I need to be honest with God about? All of them. Like, I don't know. We're pretty open about it. Sorry. Am I willing to work through the pain and unfairness of my life in order to find God and be freed from addiction? So what holds me back? So yeah, I'm willing to work through the pain and unfairness, which I have most way. I'm not going to sit here and say that like I can't do it more, because I obviously can. Whether that's like stuff that happens currently or stuff that's old. So there's always work to be done. But of my life in order to find God and be freed from addiction. What holds me back? What holds me back is I still make those dumb decisions. Honestly, I still like do what I want, but sometimes I still would like to be in control and just decide that I know it's better. And we're not going to act like I don't. So basically through step 2, it helped me realize, and you don't think about it until you have the book in front of you and like you're actually looking and it's pointing out like things that you do. So a power greater than me could restore me to sanity. Like all of the decisions that I made, all of the actions that I've done, I can still go back and stop being in control. I can still decide later on whether it doesn't matter how many decisions that I've made or how many people I've let back in my life or how many people I've pushed out of my life. Like there's always a time that I can go back or just hand over my life to God and stop trying to be in control of it, because it never really works out for me anyway. I usually just make it worse. So I'm still working through it. It's still the steps, you work through them your whole life off and on. But my thing was over persistent seeking, and I have an issue. So like I always have a relationship with God. My hard time is seeking that out actively, because I get really, really busy, and then I just like, it's not that I don't care, I just stop thinking about it actively. And so it's the hard part for me is being persistent, and like going one step further rather than just, talking to God at the end of the day about all of the stupid things I did, because that's like an everyday conversation. So like I said, it's still step 2, just like step 1 is still an everyday like thing. It's still, you don't just like work the step and then you're done like for the rest of your life. So there's definitely things that I could keep learning and that I could keep doing better. But for step 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. That's what I have. So
All right. Thank you, Kate. That was really, really good.
Good, Kate.
Good job.
thank you.
Let me,
And
I want to talk, Angie's not here, and I'm going to go ahead and talk just a little bit about the step, and then I'll give everybody a chance to reflect about it. Is that okay? And so, and Kate, I really liked what you said and how you said it, because you basically were speaking for everybody. Everybody, we all have had or do have, mostly probably do have a lot of those same issues. And this topic that you selected, I was wondering where you were going to land in it, and so I thought you did well. And but out of Job 14, we talked about Job in step 1, if you guys remember, about hope in the midst of suffering. And that was in step 1 last month. And, you know, primarily, I'm going to try to sum up what Job 14 is talking about here. Job was had a trauma that came into his life. Okay, he lost all of his children. He lost all of his cattle and crops, and basically, put it in today's term, he lost all of his business. He lost his home. He lost his kids. He lost everything. Okay, now that's a lot of trauma. That's almost like a tornado coming through. In fact, it did come through and took out his kids, if I remember the story correctly. And so he had trauma, okay, and had all this happening, and he was perplexed. So he was in the midst of grieving, okay, and we just went through a week of frigid cold, water freezing, pipes bursting. We have sewer lines here at the church that froze and burst. We had water meters that froze up. You know, at my house, even at my house, my heater wouldn't heat my house. And so I heated with butane in the oven, and no problem. Everything was fine, but you know, we all had different struggles, okay? And Job here had struggles, and I learned something as I went through this material, that he had 3 friends that basically were very negative, and their mindset was, if you've got a problem, you sinned, and this is your fault, okay? And his wife basically said the same thing. They all said, hey, give up. Won't you just curse God and die? So now go back. Job was in the midst of trauma. He was in the midst of mourning, okay? And when you're in that state, you're not thinking all correct. I mean, you're in pain, right? And so, and then he had these friends that were telling him, well, you know, you've done something, you deserve this, basically. Has anybody ever told you that you deserve whatever you're getting? Okay. And it wasn't his fault. Okay. But he was in that, he was suffering. And in fact, and in the midst of his suffering, he even called out to God and questioned God. And that's what we do when we're in the midst of suffering. You know, sometimes we even ask God, why is this happening to me? Okay. And even Jesus, when the lame man, I don't remember, was it the lame man or blind kid? They brought him to Jesus, and they said, who sinned, Jesus, him or his parents? I mean, somebody messed this up. Who's to blame? Basically, is what they said. And Jesus says, no, you're missing the issue. Okay, that's not it. It's about glorifying God, is what he said. And what that means to me is, it's not what happens to us, it's how we react to it. It's the attitude that we turn into. Do we explode and get mad and sabotage our life, or do we go ahead and deal with it and try to get better? And so Job asked the question. He was suffering mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Had his friends, 3 friends, telling him, you know, there's something wrong with you. You know, you're why this is happening. And he just asked God some questions. Some of them was, how frail is humanity, and how how short is life, and how full of trouble is it, and basically he's saying life isn't fair. Has anybody ever noticed that? Life isn't fair, and it's full of suffering. Okay, and Jesus even said, in this world are many temptations, many trials, but he said, I'll give you peace. Okay, and I've overcome the world. So if we're in him, we can overcome. Now, that doesn't mean you miss all the problems. It means he'll help you in dealing with the problems. Does that make sense? Now, some people, they seem to have problems after problems after problems, and I think maybe, well, someone we were talking to earlier tonight before we went on air was talking about how they have made some shifts in their life. They've let go of stuff that had been negatively affecting them. My words, not theirs. And so sometimes, yes, things come in our life because we have made poor choices, like Kate was talking about. But sometimes things come in our life that they show up, whether it's our fault or our environment's fault, or maybe that because we accidentally got in the wrong environment, or who knows what. Okay, but the thing of it is, and I think Zach has said this, and I'm trying to remember his verbiage. It doesn't matter. You have whatever the problem is, you still got to deal with it. You still got to deal with. You have to work for a solution the best you can. Okay, and the better of the attitude that you have, the more possibility that we can have maybe quicker and or better results. So we have to work on that. And I know Viktor Frankl says, when you can't change a situation, then what you have to do is change yourself. And so I'm pecking on the table. Probably that makes noise on it, doesn't it? So anyway, so let me just finish up this statement here about Job. And so life is painful, it's unfair, and but the main thing that this whole lesson is about is persistent seeking. Inside, he knew, even though life wasn't fair, God was good, and that he was going to continue to persist, no matter if we, here, I think a few weeks ago we talked about Daniel in the lion's den, and no matter if you even throw me in the fiery furnace, we're not going to change our beliefs. We're not going to change the direction we're going, because that's who I want to be. That's who I choose to transform into, the best version of myself, as we say nowadays. So that kind of puts all that in there, and I want to close my end of this, and this is Joseph Campbell. I haven't used this quote in a long time, and I always try to have a few quotes in there for Kate because she likes quotes, and we said it before, but this is a good one. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. So if we're hiding from that persistent seeking, then we don't go into those hard or scary places. We have to learn how to address our problems, look at them, and later on I'm going to talk about you have to spend enough time in to figure some things out, but you don't live there. You just spend what time you need there, and then you go on. Okay, you don't get stuck. So Joseph Campbell, the cave you fear to enter, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. So, anybody have any any thoughts or reflections that you'd like to share about step 2? Okay,
Doug,
Tommy.
I do.
Okay, let's hit Tommy first, and we'll come back to you, Lisa, okay? That'll be great. You got it, Tommy.
Yeah, I was thinking about that question. It says, am I willing to work through the pain and unfairness of my life in order to find God and be free from my addiction? What holds me back? Well, what holds me back is using the tools that I know when I'm in the times when it's like, this is unfair. Or this ain't how things should be. And I'm like, and then I start wondering, well, what I do wrong? And then I go way off course. And then I'm manic. I've been manic for like 2 days because I didn't know how to approach the situation at work when all it was I needed to do was go there and talk. So in becoming manic, I still was able to approach the situation, but not with the attitude I would normally have when I become manic, because I've learned tools not to be that person.
That's good, Tommy.
I tried to write that down, but I couldn't. So I guess I just had to say it.
Okay, Lisa has some good word. I see. Where's Lisa at? Well, I have to just shut you off, Tommy. There you go. I'm cancel you now. Lisa should come. Lisa, you'll have to talk and it'll find you.
Okay. So, hold on a second. There we go. I can't do both of these things. So, I was looking at in the workbook, in the little reading that it has before you get to the questions, and I like this interesting twist on the persistent seeking. It says, in the meditations on this step, we look at the scriptures that describe what happens when we try to live in our own power. First, we begin to think that God is unfair. We begin to question him and wonder if he is really with us, as Job did. Our insanity, in this case, is in having the arrogance to think that we could actually see the whole picture as God does, and knowing what is fair and what is unfair. Coming to believe for Job meant accepting that he was a finite human. And that goes on to talk about he had to accept God's power as well. But I thought, talk about persistent seeking. This is the first time I've kind of looked at this in a different perspective, is how we as the human creature, we think we know what path we're supposed to follow. And so we continually try to get ourselves down that way. We fight and we keep doing things to try to get ourselves where we want to go, instead of accepting where God wants us to go. A lot of the times we end up by our persistent seeking of our will in worse situations than we had ever been if we had to just listen to him. And it's our nature to just kind of continue. We've been persistently seeking something all our lives. But freedom comes from when we start persistently seeking in a different direction. So, in somebody else's will and not our own. So I just kind of thought that was interesting to hear that, when we think we have that vision to know what, to see the picture as God does, and to know what's fair and what's unfair. And we very often think we know what we feel like we know what God's plan is for us. So.
Well, how do we get around that corner there, Lisa, of coming to the place that we're willing to go ahead and not try to control and be willing to yield ourselves to God's direction and power? How about that?
Well, I can only say that I continue to practice that daily. But I can remember one of the most powerful times in my life when I really kind of accepted. It was one of the first times it had happened in my life. And that's when I first started really kind of listening more fervently and started persistently seeking God's will. I remember sitting, I was at my job and I was having a really horrible time. I didn't get along with my boss at all. We literally fought all the time, and it was just a really miserable environment. And I was doing everything I could to get out of this job. I had applied for other places. I had gone and done interviews at other places. And all the while feeling like God was telling me I needed to just sit still and stay there. And I'm like, why would you want me to stay here in this misery? This is horrible. I hate it. I don't even want to go to work most days. So why would you want me to stay there? And all the while I had been still praying that that God would bring me to a place where I could, do what I do at SNL and be able to, do that all the time. And so it was very interesting because that was my prayer. And then I'm going to work and it was miserable. I'm like, I hate this. I want something like I could do where I could give back and plant seeds. And, this is what I wanted to do. And so I remember sitting in that office one day and I stuck around and finally quit looking for another job and just submitted to, okay, I'll see where this goes. And I was sitting at my desk one day when we got the email that said, hey, there's a job open for a peer support specialist. The only requirements are that you have to have a high school diploma and you have to be a person in recovery. And I was like, check, I am so there. And and that's when I literally, that's when things changed the whole direction for me. And I got to get the job that I had been praying for 2 years. But I had to sit tight in that spot where I didn't want to be, that I was miserable going to, for God, because God had a plan. I just had to be patient and wait for it to be there. And I wasn't being patient. I couldn't see the bigger picture. And I thought it was unfair that I had to sit through that to get to it. But now I realize that it taught me something, not that I was asking for it, that it taught me a little bit about patience, and not my favorite lesson, but I get to learn it often. So, but that was when I started realizing maybe I should start seeking his will and not mine.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That you answered my question with your story. That's great. And
Thank you.
Zach, I'm going to turn this back over to you. You do with it whatever you're going to do. How about that?
Well, I think everything that's been said is really, really good, and I think that we're about ready for Doug time. I think if everybody else is, so welcome, Doug.
Well, I was wanting to give everybody else a chance to say something. If Jessica, did you have anything you'd like to share?
Hi everybody.
Everybody's waving.
Yeah. So I read Job recently. I've been trying to read more in the Bible and get in tuned with that, and it helps me to stay humble reading the book of Job, because of everything that he went through. It's very humbling to read that, and to know that, that I am really blessed by the things that God has given me and what I have and the family that I have and the children that I have. So it helps me to stay humble when I read Job. And step 2, I don't do steps enough. That's for sure. I only do steps on Tuesdays, and that's just not enough. So, step 2 is, I don't want to sound stupid. I know it's been said a million times, but can somebody just pipe, like, I don't have my book on me. I'm sorry. I just got on here in the whim of a second, and
You want me to read step 2? Is that what you're saying?
yeah, Would you mind?
We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity.
Yes. Yes, it took time to come to believe that there was a greater power than myself. And when I finally did believe that, and everything changed for me, I don't use drugs anymore, and he's changed my whole life. He's given me my self-worth, and in him, because of how he feels about me, is changed. Just knowing that he has changed, knowing that he is my greater power, that God is my greater power, and that when I read the Bible and he tells me in there how much he loves me and that I'm beloved, and that all those things, it's totally changed my entire way of living and thinking, and how I treat myself and how I treat others and how I love others. And so when I came to believe that, everything changed for me.
All
And
right.
so that's all I got, though.
That's great.
I'm gonna get off here, though.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Well, thanks for popping in. And
Yes.
I will continue to send you an invitation if you want.
Yes, please. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Tell everybody hi.
Come back and
Bye.
see us.
Okay, I will.
All right. All right.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Does anybody else have any comments, John? Have anything you'd like to say, or Zach, or anybody else, Tommy? I'll give you all another shot. Did you shake your head no, John? Okay. No, you didn't shake your head no? Okay. All right. So again, yes, we are, we're talking about step 2 and checking the time there. We're the main topic out of the Life Recovery Bible and the Life Recovery Workbook, which maybe it's right one over there. Yes. It guides us and helps us, and as Kate said, it is a very powerful tool to help you to look into your life, and it asks you questions. If you'll really go through the information, read the stories, the scriptures, the profiles, and look at the questions, work on the questions, ask yourself the questions, think about the questions. It will help you to work out things. Now, you don't get it all at once. We've been going through the steps. I've gone through the steps for probably 20 or 25 years. So, but every time I go through the step, every time I go through this material, because I'd gone through other materials in the past, but every time I go through this material, I get more understanding, just like I talked about this particular passage right here from this week. And so anyway, we're going to I'm going to go over some information that actually I got out of Psychology Today, and it is 8 practical ways to cope with failure. And this is the when you're in failure, this is when you really need to be anchored in this persistent seeking, knowing where you want to go. Even in the midst of a problem, you need to know where you want to go. You know, if you're going on a road trip and in the old days, you'd look on the map, but nowadays you get on GPS and you set up a destination. Even if you take detours, even if you actually make the wrong turn because you were in a dead spot and you didn't get, internet, or, but the fact of it is, you will recalibrate, you'll readjust, and you'll get towards where you need to go, even if you have a flat tire or a problem or whatever, or an unexpected detour. So, another title they had in this information was that, let's see, 8 ways to bounce back after disappointment. Okay, if you like that one better, that was another title. And here's a Zig Ziglar quote. It says, "It's not how far you fall, it's how high you bounce that counts." So, when things go wrong, it's how you respond to them. That Viktor Frankl said, the last thing that can be taken from man is their free will choice to make that independent choice. Epictetus said that it's not what happens to you that matters. It's your response to what happens to you, or how you respond to it. It's kind of like some of the things you were talking about earlier, Tommy. So, failure and disappointment is inevitable, right? We all have failure. We all have disappointment. There may be some folks that's never had any failure or disappointment. I'm not sure who that is. But we've all had our fair share, and some have had more. Okay. So, but we've all had that part of our life, and it's difficult and it's challenged to deal with. And we all face moments which we don't achieve the goals that we have in mind, despite our best efforts. I think of things that I had dreams and some goals of things happening, and it just seemed like nothing was working, and seemed like people went out of their way to make it harder on you, and that happens, just kind of like the story that Lisa was talking about. And we really have to learn how to deal with that stuff. Go ahead and wade into it. When I say wade, I see it like a cesspool that we got to deal with, something in the middle of that thing, and we have to wade into it. And we have to get comfortable with dealing with problems instead of avoiding them. Our natural instinct is to avoid problems and seek pleasure. And the fact of it is, that is a survival skill that's necessary in one aspect of our life. But if we continue to live that way, then we'll never, ever grow up. We'll never, ever get better. We have to learn how to deal with difficult stuff, because that's what life is. Okay. I'm not going to do that. So 8 things. Okay. And what we, again, 8 practices, 8 practical ways to cope with failure. Okay. Persistent seeking. The first one, okay, face the truth of the situation. Okay. Denying the reality of a bad situation, or avoiding thinking about all those bad situations, actually makes your situation worse. Do I need to say that again? Denying the reality of all the bad situations, or avoiding thinking about all of the situations, makes the situation worse. Okay. I like to use the illustration about sticking, like an ostrich sticking their head in the sand. I don't know for sure if an ostrich really does that, but people say they do that. They get afraid and they stick their head in the sand. to avoid whatever's coming at them. But see, it doesn't change the reality of what's coming at them. It's still going to run over them. They just don't see it coming. Denial doesn't change what's getting ready to happen. Okay. If you say the bus isn't coming down the road and you step out in front of it because you choose not to look at it, it's going to hit you. Okay. So we need to not we deny reality, and denying it just keeps us stuck where we're at. Okay. Actually, kind of stuck for a little while, but then we start going downwards. Okay. Because we're sabotaging our life. We don't look for the solutions to work on the problems. Awareness is the first step to change. You have to be aware of what's going on, because if you're not aware, then you can't begin to deal with it. If you're avoiding it, if you're denying it, you're not looking at it, then you can't do anything about it. You become a real victim. Okay. Be willing to be willing to face the problem, but don't dwell on it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You look at it, you size it up, and you begin to process it. Okay. And if you're not able to come to a total conclusion let's just say it this way, if you're not able to do it in 24 hours, 60 hours probably isn't going to do it, or 120 hours isn't going to do it, or 6 months or a year, and we just stay stuck. We stay pinned in. So we look at it, we do our best to deal with it, and then we move on to other things. And oftentimes, even some of the great inventors, and Einstein talks about that, when they're dealing with hard problems, they'd finally stop and they'd get away from it. They'd do something else. They'd go for a walk or whatever, to give their unconscious a chance to process things. And so we need to not keep ourselves locked down and just continue to meditate or mull over the same place. We need to go on. So I'm going to just stop right there, and so and focus on something that's different, or at least maybe positive. Research suggests that avoiding thinking about or dealing with problems actually creates more stressors. So avoiding thinking or denying actually creates more stressors, a phenomenon called stress generators. That's what they said. Researchers say that. So denying it, I guess like denying that the bus is there and I'm just going to walk out in any way, that would be a real put yourself in a state of generated stress, because you're going to get ran over. Or like they go and say, like not denying looking at the bills. You get the envelope, but you put it in the drawer, and it's going to generate somebody calling you and saying, we're going to turn your electricity off, or we're going to repo your car, or whatever. And if you don't answer the phone, they're going to do it anyway. Right? And then you're going to be even more angry. Right? I remember a guy that went and got one of those payday loans they put his car up, and he came to me and he was mad. He was so mad because the more he paid, the more he owed. In case you didn't know, that's how it seems to work a lot. And he said, I owe more now than the car's even worth, so I'll just drive this car through their window. And I said, no, that's not going to work out well for you. That makes sense, right? And fortunately, he didn't drive the car through the window. He went on and dealt with it in a healthier way. So, all right, number 2, allow yourself to mourn loss of dreams. Allow yourself to mourn anything that you've lost, because we can lose all kinds of things. The gap between how you want things to turn out and how they actually turn out sometimes can leave you sad. You can feel regret. You begin mourning what's those things in your life. And the steps of mourning are really important to go through. You can't postpone them. You got to go ahead and process through them. You have to turn towards letting things go. Denying it is not going to help you get better. It actually, again, will make you get worse. So you have to be willing to let things go. Studies show that when a subject would write down what their deep thoughts, their painful thoughts or feelings about a loss or a breakup or whatever like that, they said that if you'll just write them down, that in this one particular research, that you'll actually recover quicker and your health will even be better, just by processing them. Instead of avoiding them, process them. Okay, so processing them is a form of mourning. Okay, and I've told a lot of people sometimes they need to even just give themselves an opportunity to have a set time to even cry, and to get it out, because that's a emotional release. Tears of when you are weeping or mourning, those tears have different chemical makeups as the regular liquids that you have in your eyes, so they say. So, and another study talks about executives and engineers who deliberately confronted their feelings from a loss of a job, because they felt, after they did that, they go ahead and talk about the feelings. They actually, I thought this is very interesting. They actually felt more control over their situation because they just went on and talked about it. And to me, I can see that they have all this negative anxiety inside and they're kind of fighting inside. And if they go ahead and let it go, they have released that internal resistance that they're having to struggle with. And then they feel better. And the rest of that statement is, and had a much higher rate of reemployment. Okay, got another job faster than others that didn't process their emotions. Number 3, don't get stuck feeling like a victim. Well, there's a lot of people that feel like victims, you know, and Job here that we talked about had, I mean, gosh, he had a right to feel like a victim, yeah, and we could feel that way, okay, but the statement here says don't get stuck, okay? Yeah, we may feel like it, but don't get stuck in it. We got to process through it. Does that make sense? Just because Job felt like it, he didn't stay there, okay? He kept persisting and seeking and going on, and that's the only way that we're ever going to recover, okay? We have to continue to take that next healthy step. And so don't get stuck. Whenever your situation, you always have to choose. You always have choices, okay? In every situation, you always have choices. There's always more than one choice, always. And there's always some that are better than others, right? And I always tell people, you know, make the healthiest choice you can, all right? You may not be able to make the ultimate healthy choice, but just make the healthiest one you can. That begins you going in a healthier direction. Does that make sense? So you always have choices, and you actually have skills to deal with your situation. Because if you'll just look back at stuff that you've had in your life that you've you've dealt with it. You gained some sort of skill. Whether you realize it or not, you learned something there. You may need to tap into that so that you can manage what's going on now. If you're being, okay, let's see. Okay. If you're being mistreated, okay, this is just to kind of finish out the statement. If you're being mistreated, you may just need to speak up or walk away. If you can't walk away right now, you need to work on becoming more independent, you know, self-reliant, self-confident in yourself, and then seek other opportunities or situations, increase your knowledge base to empower yourself to not be stuck so that you can maybe make other choices or walk away. Okay. All right. Number 4, check if your expectations are realistic. This is very, very important. Okay. And sometimes this is hard to do, by the way. And oftentimes in this 21st century, we are presented with all kinds of new realities. And that right there sometimes can be a dilemma. There's some new research out that says if you have too many choices, that oftentimes messes with your brain because it overwhelms you, because you're afraid you're going to do something wrong. And how can you make the right one choice? Sometimes you just have to make the best choice that you can with the information that you have. And that's pretty hard. So you have to check your expectations, because the reality is there are no guarantees, okay? And nobody can do 100% all the time, okay? I remember the day that I was doing some business, and man, my idea was don't lose money, okay? You know, and I realized that I had an awakening that my expectation about not losing money was not realistic. Can you believe that? Nobody wants to lose money, but the fact of it is, business, all businesses lose money. And we make mistakes, we do things wrong, things happen, stuff happens, but it's reality. That's the cost of business sometimes, most of the time. So what we have to do is we have to alter our goals. We have to figure out that sometimes it may take a few more months to get our life into situation. But if we continue to focus on doing the best choice that we can, the healthiest choice that we can, then things will get better. Yes, people will let us down. People will get mad at us. People will reject us. People won't do what they say. And because everybody's flawed, right? There's no perfect individual. So we need to check our expectation. It is my expectation rational? Is it true? Is it doable? Is it real? And we just have to do that. I want to stop right there. This is a really good one, number 5. Be kind to yourself. Did I say number 5 is be kind to yourself? Be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself. If you're going to be kind to anybody, you should be kind to yourself. You should be kind to everybody, but especially yourself. Okay? A lot of people treat themselves terribly. They beat themselves up in their brain. They punish themselves. They torture themselves. I was talking to a guy this week, and I said, "Man, You've asked God to forgive you. You need to forgive yourself. You need to stop trying to pay for everything in the past. If God's forgiven you, you need to forgive yourself. And he said, I know. You told me that 5 years ago. And he needs, he's doing quite well. Okay. And he had some people around him that was helping him and working with him, systems of care, self-care, and he's doing good. But even though we're doing a lot of other good things, that thing right there is still pushing his buttons. How about that? So be kind to yourself. When things go wrong, it may not be your fault. It may not be because of you. Just like Job, it wasn't his fault that all of the perfect storm took place. Okay. And so I lost my place here. So we need to be focused on that. Let's go to number 6. Look for the silver lining. Okay. We need to be willing to look into every situation, and if we can, see the opportunity in that situation. Like we mentioned a while ago, when I say often, it's a golden opportunity. Here they're talking about a silver lining. And every situation that intersects with our life, we can grow from it. We can learn from it. Some of the hard situations in our life, we don't like them, but we still can grow. And if you think back in your life, just as Lisa was telling her story earlier, those things were very beneficial to her now, even though they were extremely hard at the time. And the rest of the story, the secret behind the story is, if you don't get it through the first situation, there's going to be another one just like it to help you get it then. And you get it, that goes around and around and around until you get better at it. Okay? Isn't that true? Yeah. Okay, so it's important to learn what you can out of the situation, because there are things that you can learn, skills you can learn, talents you can learn. Don't be harsh and self-judgmental, okay? And just realize that we look for that silver lining, okay? And in these situations that happen, just like Job, we can have bad moments, but it's not a bad life. We can have one bad page in our book, but the rest of the story is, if Job would have stopped his book right there when he was in the middle of his extreme grief, let's say he just went on and died or committed suicide, he stopped his story right there. But he didn't, and you shouldn't. You should go ahead and live. You should go ahead and stay in there. Yes, this is a bad moment, but the fact of it is, we've had some bad moments that we didn't think we could live through, but we did. You'll live through this one. You will, and you'll learn from it. You'll grow from it, and your story's not over unless you make it over. I don't know any better way of saying it than that. I have another quote from Alexander Graham Bell, and you're probably familiar with this, but actually I hadn't heard the rest of it. And it says, when one door closes, another opens. But we often, this is the part that I've not heard, but we often look so long and so regretfully upon the closed door that we do not see the one which has opened for us. How about that? Number 7, be willing to try a different approach. Man, that we need to carry that around with us, that idea. Be willing to try a different approach. Like you were talking about earlier, Tommy, about this guy, and finally you helped him to understand he needed to be willing to try a different approach, right? And see but see, you were willing to try a different approach to try to get him willing to try a different approach, okay? Instead of just as you said, as your boss said, he wanted to tear his head off, that's maybe a different approach. It's just not going to be a very healthy one. And probably he was just venting. But you figured out a different approach. And we all need to figure that. So when you don't first succeed, as they say, try a different approach, right? Try again, but try it in a different way, all right? A different approach. So, so if you want to, if what you want are not isn't working, okay, you will need to do things differently, which we've already talked about. And in doing so, getting what you, oftentimes, if you're not getting what you want, you may have to move into a place that's not your comfort zone. It may, because if it's not your comfort zone, that means you haven't learned the skills or the talents, or this particular way of negotiating like you did, Tommy. You tried something different. It was a reset. You used that word. It was a reset, which and so we have to be willing to do that. We have to be willing to tolerate loss. We have to be willing to tolerate risk. We have to tolerate uncertainty. And we hate uncertainty, but we have to learn, we have to build that tolerance to uncertainty. Number 8, and this is the last one. And it's find your grit, okay? There is a book written about grit, and that's Angela Duckworth. She's a researcher, and her research that she has written this book off of was the research shows that persistence and determination are at least as important to success as intelligence. I'm gonna say that again. Persistence and determination are at least as important as intelligence. She had written this book and she entitled it Grit, and she had done some research on top of that, and she had worked with people ranging from the school-age children to West Point cadets, and measured their grit by some sort of instrument that she created to measure their grit. And she could predict through this instrument their grit level, and their grit level would, if they have a high grit level, it would determine their success, not depending on their talent or their intelligence. Okay, and those things that she primarily looked at on this grit instrument was their dedication to the goals, to passion, and exhibiting persistence over the long period, and also their conscientiousness. So anyway, that's those things that I wanted to point out. Again, this is out of an article out of the Psychology Today. Dr. Greenberg had put it together, and I hopefully is helpful to you all. Any comments from anybody or any questions? I couldn't hear you, Tommy.
I had
Go ahead. We'll let you go first, Zach.
I guess my one thought that I had was, I mean, it was all good, and I had a thought initially, something you said. Um, there are some folks that don't want to get better right now, and but they tell themselves they want to get better, and then they tell, and sometimes those folks are actually getting help. They're in the practice of getting help, or the process of getting help, and which is good. I'm not saying that's bad, but they may be telling themselves or the people that are giving them support that they want help, but their actions tell a different story. And so I guess my thought was, do you really want to get better? Do you really want help? And I think that's something that we all have to ask ourselves from time to time. Because I know in my own life, there was a time that I used to really say I really wanted help and I really wanted to get better, and I would pray and I would ask God for help. But the truth is that I would say one thing with my mouth, but my actions would always do something different. And I'm not trying to be hard about that in any way, but that is its own kind of hell. And and what I think happens to us is we're talking about being stuck tonight a lot. And I think that we get stuck because even though it's painful and it can be hellish, we know it. It's familiar to us. And you can want two things at one time. I used to believe that wasn't possible. And I've had really educated people tell me that's not possible. But the truth is you can want to get better and stay where you are at the same time. And so, I believe that I wanted to get better, but that, whether it be conscious or subconscious, I was scared to get better. I didn't know what that looked like, what that felt like, what that would cost me, living life on life's terms, like you're talking about, when the bills come, you have to actually open them up and pay them instead of sticking them in the drawer, and this may sound ridiculous, but that costs you something because you actually have to live life on life's terms, and you have to actually pay your bills, and then all your money's gone instead of going and spending your money on what you want to spend it on, and denying reality for what it is that pretty soon they're going to be cut off. But when you're not living in reality, when they're cut off, and you can blame the electric company for being rotten people, it's never your fault. This is just a thing that we do to ourselves, and then you have something else to complain about. And so, and seldom were those things my fault, And so, my point is that I just want to encourage everybody tonight who's watching this to ask yourself, is that thing you're trying to change or the thing that you want to get better, or you want to get better, or if you're feeling stuck, do you really want to get better? And maybe you do, and I believe you. And maybe you really want to get unstuck, and I believe you want to get unstuck, but are you, what are you putting your energy and time and effort into? Are you, what are you, are you feeding the thing that's keeping you stuck? Are you feeding the thing that's going to free you? It's like the old Indian proverb, which dog are you feeding? That talks more about anger and peace, but you can kind of turn that around. Whichever one we feed, whichever thing in our life we feed is what's stronger. If we're going to feed the things that free us, then we're going to have more freedom in our life. And if we feed the things that keep us stuck, we're going to be more stuck in our life. And so I guess I just wanted to say, do you really want to be unstuck? And you can want more than one thing. But if you find yourself in that place where I was, where you say one thing, but you're still stuck, because God hears you. and God will help you, you know. And so one day I realized, well, hey, I was saying, well, God, where are you? And then I realized, well, it's not like God's not showing up for me, you know. What was I doing or not doing? And I had to kind of look in the mirror and figure some of that out. And and again, I'm not trying to be harsh, but you are, you know, you decide what you get. And that sounds so harsh to me tonight for some reason, but, and I know that it's not easy. I know that it's not easy, but you can have whatever you want. And you may be saying that, well, that's not true, but it is true. You can have whatever you want if you're willing to put the effort in. And I'm not trying to just to say the cliche, you know, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. I mean, and the truth is that it doesn't really take a lot of effort. You know, those people that say that, oh, you can have whatever you want if you put the effort in. The truth is that those people didn't do it all on their own. You know, I think whenever you start putting some effort in, God comes and scoops you up and carries you out of that place, you know. And I think that's what he does for everybody. And so it's not like you have to exert this amazing amount of effort and do it all by yourself. It's just that becoming willing part to do something new and different and start in that direction. And he is there, he's the wind behind you, and he helps you, and he does a lot of it for you. It's not like it's all you at all. That's not what I'm saying. It's you really feeding the other dog for a change, you know. And when it gets hard, not going back into old coping skills. And I know that's hard, you know. And it's you doing the healthy thing and going to therapy, but really not just going to therapy, but actually how long did I sit in therapy and not use it? I just wasted it. Because you can go to therapy your whole life and waste your time and their time. Just as you go doesn't mean anything, you know. You know, I mean, you can go to the doctor and get medicine, you know, and I'm not against medicine. You know, I think it's there for stability to help you, you know, keep you stable to learn some stuff and keep you calm to learn some stuff, and then hopefully that stuff falls off. But you can go get the medicine, but if you don't take the pills, what does it help you? You know, and so that's all I'm talking about, is getting real with ourselves and, you know, and being honest with ourselves, because if we keep lying to ourselves, we never have anything we want. And so I'll pass it on to Tommy.
All righty. It's yours, Tommy.
He said it. It's all right there. Because I was gonna talk about therapy and go to therapy and talk therapy and getting it out and learning new ways and looking at things differently and taking a step back sometimes, even though you're in the midst of a storm that you think you could just solve it, and you can't. Step back. You know, he said it. He got the whole thing. Thank you. Thank you, Zach.
Thank you, Tommy. And I wanted to say that you reminded me of several individuals, and I'm not upset about this, because this is the process. How many things have I told folks, and I knew they weren't going to do it, even though they agreed that it's in their best interest to do it, and they wanted to do it, but they weren't able, for all those reasons that you stated, that they didn't do it. I remember a guy that came into my office and we visited, and that actually it was a Thursday, and I think they had the stuff out here on Main Street, third Thursday. There you go. And we talked about some things, about some money that he was going to be doing, and how healthy steps to take in his life, and we what was in his best interest, and we kind of mapped out where he wanted to go. Okay, where he wanted to go. But as soon as he left my door, he went someplace else. And literally, he went someplace else. And it was many months before I ever got a chance to see him again, because he went someplace else. And so I remember another fellow that you were talking about that was having some problems, and we agreed on what he needed to do to help himself. Okay, I want help. This is what we figured out what it is he needed to do. He said, yeah, that's what I need to do. Yeah, that's what I need to do. It was, and the reason why he hadn't done up that part, because like you said, Zach, it was hard and it was scary to him. I believe anyway, and I think that's the truth. I think that bears out that. And so I helped him with this problem. And I said, in 30 days, you need to have done some of what we said is in your best interest. In 30 days, he came back with the same problem, with the same need, but he was still in the same place because he didn't do anything. I warned him the month before that if you don't do, I can't do. He didn't do, I didn't do. And that's hard. That's hard to do. That's hard to do. And yes, I didn't see him for a long time. But both of those folks, they did come back around, and they made their adjustments, and they did exactly what we agreed on eventually. But sometimes it takes some processing time, and that maybe is not the best story in the world to tell, but I think it's real. And Lisa's got her hand up, so I wanted to give her a chance to.
I was
Sure.
just going to say, Doug, I was one of those people you told to do things, and you know, I'm fairly positive you knew I was not going to do it when I left our conversation. And it's interesting that you mentioned scheduling crying time, because I was one of the people you told to do that. And I remember when you told me, I thought there is no way I'm ever doing that, because I didn't want to have anything to do with crying or any kind of emotions. I was trying to avoid that. I couldn't figure out why you were telling me to go do the thing I was trying not to do. And so it's very interesting that I finally, you know, I wasn't doing it, and finally I got the golden opportunity to have a "how's that working for you" conversation. And then so finally well, that's not working, so I'll try it. And then it was very interesting, because this week I found myself suggesting to someone else to go have themselves some scheduled crying time so they could help work through some of their stuff. So I was passing that on, and I kind of was chuckling about remembering the first time you told me to do it and how long it took me, and having that feeling when I was talking to the person that they're probably not going to do it the first time. It's going to take a couple times to have that conversation before they try it. And I was like, oh, this must have been how Doug felt. And so now we're talking about that now. I thought it was pretty humorous, but I am one of those people who walked away, and I know you knew I was not going to do that for a while.
Well, as we all know, as we've learned with working with people, that that's the way it is. But we go ahead and we continue to love. We continue to pour into people's lives, knowing that maybe they'll be able to grab a hold of something. Maybe they'll go ahead and take hold of something, or maybe later on they'll hear it the second or third time. Right? So, thanks, Lisa. I can't say that I remember telling you that, but that's one of the things that I I can say, you know. So anyway, I just want to say, Lord bless you and keep you, and may his face shine upon you and give you his peace. And of course, always make healthy choices, or at least as healthy as choice as you can, right? So I'm going to send her back to Zach, and he's going to close it out for us. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Well, thanks for being with us tonight, and just know that we love you here at SNL, and you know, if I guess I feel like I need to say tonight, if anything we say comes off harsh or it's hard to swallow sometimes, just know that we love you and we're just trying to help you. And we get it. We know it's hard, and we know it isn't easy, you know, but we want to be that friend that tells you the truth, and that you know, we don't want to waste your time or keep you suffering any longer than what you already have been. And so if you're stuck tonight, you know, you're just a choice away. You're just a choice away from changing your whole world. And know that you don't got to do that by yourself. And so take care of yourself. You're important to us, and we love you. Thanks.